Some of Germany's most popular television shows are actually American television series, and therefore a lot of Germans may think they know what watching TV in the US is or would be like, but we can tell you there are profound and alarming differences between watching TV in the US and in Germany. Profound.
Hey guys, and welcome back to our channel. I am Donnie.
And I'm Aubrey.
And we are two Americans currently living in Germany and sharing all of our experiences living and traveling throughout Europe. Something Germans think they are very familiar with is American entertainment because American media is widely viewed in Germany. In fact, on our German cable service, we get American channels like HGTV, TLC, and Nickelodeon, but not like Americans would recognize them. There are also other channels that are unlike anything that we have seen in the US. After watching hours of German and American television ourselves, we can tell you there are some very interesting and jaw-dropping differences between German and American television. And that is exactly what we are going to talk about and more today in our video, Fernsehen Television. What can you watch in Germany that you can't in America?
Today, we are just going to be able to cover a few of the biggest differences that we've noticed while watching American television growing up in the US and from watching television in Germany while we have lived here for over a year. We know we won't cover all the differences, and some of these differences could apply to a lot more countries. Let us know in the comments what other differences you know of between these two countries, or if you are from a different one, tell us how these differences compare to your country so we can compare experiences from all around the world.
When an American first moves to Germany, they will come across one of the first and most shocking differences between the US and German television experiences in the form of a letter in the mail sent to their new address. In this lovely little letter will be a note asking for them to start paying €17.50 per month for radio and television. It will give you different options other than just paying it monthly, but in the end, they will want to collect €210 for the year from your new household. A vast majority of Americans we have talked to were confused by this letter and thought it was junk mail for a cable or a satellite service provider, and they just threw it away. We even had one friend who did this for a few years, and when she decided to move back to the States, she was sent a not as lovely little note saying she owes multiple years worth of TV and radio payments. So what is this letter actually? Every household in Germany must pay a license fee to contribute to funding public broadcasting on radio and television. But you may ask, what if you stream all of your TV on services like Netflix anyways and don't own a radio? Doesn't matter, you still pay. There are very few exceptions that only really apply to those that are low income and on welfare or have serious health issues. So in that case, maybe you decide you'll watch TV, and if you're paying for it, I mean, why not? What does that get you? It actually gets you a surprisingly large number of TV channels with high quality entertainment. The map of Germany is broken up into regions that provide local public broadcasting. They are all operating in a group from the main organization, the ARD, which seems like, by the way, it is just an abbreviation for a three-letter word, but it actually is a fantastic example of the beautiful German language and stands for die Arbeitsgemeinschaft der öffentlich-rechtlichen Rundfunkanstalten der Bundesrepublik Deutschland, which basically just means the working group of public broadcasters of Germany. Germany still, of course, has a whole load of private channels for free as well, but much more options of public broadcasting than in the US. The public broadcasting here also has some of the highest budgets in the world for production, and they produce really good TV.
This is a very foreign concept and is extremely confusing to Americans when they first arrive in Germany for multiple reasons. First, we don't have a license fee like this in the US. If you don't want to pay for a private cable or satellite service for TV connection, you can watch TV with an antenna. With an antenna, it depends on your area and the strength of signal, but you can still get up to 70 to 100 channels for free. A lot of these channels won't be the main high-budget TV channels you can get with a cable or satellite subscription, and it may not be great entertainment, but you still can get some of the main channels like ABC, NBC, or the CW, for example. Second, we do have public broadcasting broadcasting in the US, but it consists of PBS and NPR. That's it. PBS is the public broadcasting television channel and NPR is the radio channel. I already know a lot of you are thinking, well, if it is public broadcasting, then you are paying for it somehow in taxes, even if you aren't receiving a letter in the mail directly for it. And in some ways you're right, because they do receive some federal government funding and sometimes state government funding. But data from 2018 shows it was at a cost of less than $3 per person per year. Instead, our public broadcasting has well-known telethons and pledge drives to raise funds from private donations from citizens or private foundations that enjoy their programming. And they also get funding from member station dues or other sources.
This can turn into a much more complicated video about the history of public broadcasting in Germany and the US and why it is the way that it is, but the main difference from our experience and for the point of this video being that in Germany, public television owns a major share of the air, unlike in the US, but every German household must pay significantly more for public broadcasting whether they stream all their entertainment anyways or not than a person in the US must.
Wherever we've traveled in the world, one thing is for sure, America is a huge exporter of media and American television is fairly popular around the world. However, in a lot of different countries, they will still be in English or have subtitles in the language of the country they are playing in. In Germany though, they are almost always dubbed into German. So on German television, you will find TLC and you will find American TLC originals, but everything will be dubbed in German.
Also 3. Die Mädchen bereiten Sie vor. Ich bin sehr verärgert, aber ich fürchte, er versucht wieder, sich selbst zu operieren, wenn ich nicht eingreife.
Dubbing in Germany is also very well done, and voice actors doing the dubbing will literally become famous for doing so. Often a voice actor dubbing for the original actor will do the voice for that particular Hollywood actor their entire career to ensure that from one film to another, the voice stays the same for the German audience, and they don't have to get used to why David Hasselhoff's voice
suddenly became so high-pitched in one film
or
deep in another
if they changed who was doing the dubbing for him.
This is something that we have now tried to get used to in order to practice our German and watch shows that we love. In fact, one of our favorite things about watching shows in Germany is working on improving our language skills. Because of that, we are happy to tell you the sponsor of today's video is Rosetta Stone.
Maybe there are some shows that are originally in a language that is foreign to you, but you have been dying to see. We can tell you that Rosetta Stone is a perfect program to help you achieve that goal. Rosetta Stone is a language learning app that is unique in that you learn through immersion and association rather than just boring old flashcards and translating. We have tried learning German many different ways and have seen that we learn so much more naturally by looking at a picture and then associating it with a sound or word in our target language, just like we did as children learning our native language.
With Rosetta Stone, you can learn anytime, any place, and at any skill level on your desktop, your phone, or your tablet. Of course, we wouldn't be telling you about them unless we wanted our lovely viewers to actually give them a try. And we are happy to tell you that if you use the link in our description, you can get great discounts on all subscriptions, or you can get lifetime Rosetta Stone and get access to all of the languages the app offers for life for only $199.
Recently, we were watching TV with some friends on a Sunday night, and we noticed some very interesting differences as we watched The Voice of Germany. First, let's look at the Sunday lineup for the TV station Sat.1. One of the first unusual things for an American looking at this lineup is that The Voice of Germany starts at 8:15. But honestly, if you look at the whole lineup, it all looks very confusing. Movies starting at 12:50 and 2:35, shows starting at 5:25, 7:55, 10:45. Where is the uniformity and predictability? If we compare this to a normal TV lineup for the US station NBC for the same day, you will see shows always starting on the hour or half hour. This can of course sometimes vary slightly if, for instance, a sports game is airing and you can't always predict when those will end, but it will be corrected quickly to get back on the regular hour and half hour schedule.
And this is so confusing for us, as we personally would expect the uniformity to belong to German television simply because of the stereotype of Germans loving structure and order. We would think that the other seemingly random times would be made by the Americans who think a good measuring system is 12 inches in a foot and 5,280 feet in a mile. But an interesting reason why, for example, The Voice of Germany airs at 8:15 is because this is the start to German primetime. Why is 8:15 and not the nice round 8 o'clock like the US primetime? That's because primetime waits until after the Tagesschau airs from 8 to 8:15. The Tagesschau, which translates to the Daily Show or more loosely the day's report, is a quick 15-minute bulletin that reports on what has happened in that day's news. It is a show produced by ARD Aktuell that is simultaneously aired on other public networks as well. When you flip through the channels on your TV at 8 o'clock in Germany, it will look like you aren't getting anywhere and every single channel is playing the same thing. Honestly, the rest of the scheduling I can't really make sense of, so if some of our German viewers can attempt to explain, please do.
The other unique thing about the airing of The Voice of Germany, it felt like this single episode was going on.
And on.
Not because we weren't enjoying it, but because it felt like it was going on forever. In fact, if you look again at the TV schedule for Sat.1, you will see this single episode lasts for 2.5 hours. In the US, some shows do have 2-hour finales or specials, but we would say this seems somewhat rare. If we look at the US schedule for the American version of the same show, The Voice, we do see this rarity on one airing this week, but the other airing is the normal 1-hour duration, and that is typically as long as a show will get in the US. Our friends we were watching this show with explained this is pretty normal in Germany, and since then we have noticed it more with even other shows like a single Das große Backen episode, a spin-off of the Great British Baking Show, airing for 2.5 hours each week. We have also seemed to notice that the show structures are the exact same as the US versions, but the German versions just take much more time getting through all the parts of the show, whereas the American version now seems to kind of show the highlights and moves on to the main points.
However, of course, whether these shows air for 1 hour or 2.5 hours, you are not actually watching that much show. Throughout these shows, you will typically have commercial breaks, which brings us to another interesting difference between TV in the US and Germany. While watching German and American television, we feel like in the US, we have much shorter commercial breaks, but a lot more breaks throughout a show. Whereas in Germany, we feel like we experience fewer breaks in a program, but much longer commercial interruptions. There, of course, is a difference in private versus public TV channels and how much they advertise. For example, on Wikipedia, we found a quick explanation of German regulations on advertising. Public channels get 20 minutes of advertising per day and no commercials after 8 p.m. or on Sunday and holidays. Private stations are allowed up to 12 minutes of advertising per hour with a minimum of 20 minutes of programming in between interruptions. However, maybe some of our German viewers can clear up some of our confusion on this because we don't feel that this is entirely accurate. For example, when we recently were watching Das große Backen, we timed the breaks and we got nearly 20 minutes of breaks, but it was split into two 10-minute breaks at the beginning of the hour and the end of the hour.
In the US, since most nearly all channels are private, you will typically get about 42 minutes of your show and 18 minutes of commercials out of an hour-long show, and 22 minutes of your show and 8 minutes of commercials for a half-hour show.
Out of all of the differences we have talked about today, there is none more shocking for Americans watching German television than that of what is censored and, more importantly, not censored on German television than that on US television. Without getting too far into the weeds of the complicated FCC regulations in the US or censorship norms in Germany, and almost purely based on our observations that got us into looking in these differences in the first place, we heard much more cursing and the use of particular curse words like the English F word on German television that you would never ever hear on American television. This is also true for nudity. It is not entirely uncommon to be scrolling through regular German television and come across a couple of naked bodies. Unlike in the US where you would never see that on normal television channels. However, American television and media do seem more willing to accept much more violent content than German television and media.
From what we have heard, between Germany and the US, there are different perspectives on censorship censorship and whether or not certain things should be allowed. Also, in the US, it is a government agency, the FCC, that determines what should be allowed or not, unlike in Germany, where it is a non-government association that helps work with stations on what should or should not air or when. In the US, typically more just the existence of nudity and cursing is enough to censor it, as these are deemed unsuitable for all audiences. Germany looks a lot more behind the intent of nudity or cursing. For example, a curse word may be used if they are simply using it for exclamation and emphasis, but if a curse word is being used to attack someone, it may be more prone to being somewhat unacceptable. Same with nudity. Nudity in the US is outright viewed as unsuitable for all audiences, no matter what type. But in Germany, they look at the intent behind the use of the nudity. In general, nudity is allowed on TV at any time. For example, showing fully nude people inside of a sauna, which of course is not sexual in nature, but after 8 p.m., there can be sexual scenes and nudity determined acceptable for 12 and older, and after 10 p.m., it can become more explicit. For example, one of Germany's longest running, most famous, and beloved primetime shows is Tatort. Tatort is a crime mystery show and will often feature a sex scene in it that Germans won't bat an eye at, that would make Americans think was way too graphic for TV in general, much less primetime.
And finally, the last two differences between the US and Germany. The most popular sport to watch is football in both countries, but of course for Germany it is actually soccer. And we already mentioned the longest running series in Germany is Tatort, but in the US it is The Simpsons. Let us know in the comments what your experience is with various countries and watching TV. What differences have you noticed? And also, do you watch live TV anymore, or do you strictly just stream it now? Thanks so much for watching this video, guys, and if you enjoyed it, please hit that like and subscribe button, and we will see you in our next video.
Tschüss!
I thought when I said jaw dropping, you would go.
Oh.
4 years when she decided, dang it.
For example, one of Germany's longest running, most famous, and what?
Most famous?
What is that?
You said it.
I was joking, but I'm so glad you did it. That would be really fun. Okay, go for it.